Hey, this is Dr. Jason Johnson. Hello, welcome to my YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share. So, as per the usual, the first minute of this is just sort of a preview. If you're watching this on Instagram, I want to send you right over to my YouTube channel where I get to go into topics in more depth. Thank you guys so much. Like I said, the views have been fantastic and amazing, and I'm in a very different place right now. So it's not my usual studio, which I'm going to tell you all about later. And if you're actually watching this on my Instagram this first minute, take a look at some of my posts. Instagram is for current events and travel and breaking news, and you'll sort of see a preview of what I'm talking about. But today, I have something I need to talk about in depth, and it's not evergreen, but it's something really important. Three things, as per usual. We got to talk about this speculation I'm seeing in the Hill, Politico, and other places about the 2028 elections, and in particular, the kinds of people who might run. Three topics today, why that matters, why it's a problem. Number one, no one should be talking about this at this point. That's the first thing. Number two, none of the candidates are really relevant when we consider what their political futures are. And number three, I have some comments to make about Hollywood and Thunderbolts and the Avengers and Captain America: Brave New World. So we got a bit of a grab bag today. So I'm gonna start off with this. So lately, you guys have heard me talk before about the silly season where you have all sorts of political magazines are like, hey, we're bored. So major news outlets start doing pointless, ridiculous speculation about 2026 or the 2028 presidential election and trying to figure out who should shake and move and everything else like that. It's nonsense and it's foolish. And it's dangerous considering our current political environment. And here's why, in a very, very important way. Nobody knows anything. Nobody, right? Currently, our economy is crashing towards very, very unpleasant places because of tariffs and self-imposed bad economic management, right? So the idea of trying to figure out who should be running for president in 2028, that is 3 years away. The election is 3 years away. Absolutely bonkers to be talking about that now. And the reason why it's particularly bonkers is because it's clearly the press has never learned their lesson. What's the lesson you need to learn? Lesson number one is like, people don't like being told what to do. Right? It's really interesting. Like, imagine a situation where you're home and your house is on fire and your car is on like 4 cinder blocks and you don't have a job, and someone comes to you and says, hey, by the way, we're having elections with the homeowners association. We're just kind of wondering how you feel about who should be on the party committee. You're like, I'm not thinking about that right now. I'm not thinking about the party committee. I am thinking about the fact that my car is on blocks. I'm thinking about the fact that like my home is on fire. That's kind of where America is right now. Right? Now, if you're the politically elite press, they can sit around, they can have conversations like, well, let's speculate about what's going to happen in 2026 and 2028. But the reality is that's not where most people are. And that's where the press should be paying attention. The press should be paying attention to where people are, how they actually feel, and what's going on in their lives, not speculating on something that's 50,000 years down the road. But that's why we have this disconnect between what actually happens in the mainstream news, in 24-hour cable networks, in political press, and why people come to me and why people come to other folks on YouTube, because it's like, oh, you're actually talking about what matters to me. So it's very, 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 very foolish to be talking in speculative forms, especially because so many things can be different. Think of what's happened in this country in the last 100 days. Last 100 days. And there's at least 3 more years of this. Do you have any idea what you're going to feel about who you might want to run come 2027? Of course you don't. You don't know. I don't know. And what also ends up happening is it's sort of screaming. It's not even cream off the top, right? It ends up being, hey, press person, let's just pick the names that we know. Let's pick the big names that we know. Who cares? Who cares? The goal of the political press is to talk about what's actually happening now, not to engage in sort of political gambling and speculating as to where people might want to go down the thing. So that's the first thing. It's a problem. It's foolish. Nobody should be talking about it. We don't know what the future brings. Nobody has a magic 8-ball. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody is Miss Cleo. If there was a political Miss Cleo, it might be Steve Kornacki, and even he can't make predictions. He can just look at polling, right? So here's the second reason. When you talk about the people who might potentially be running, that's a problem. When we're talking about the Democratic side, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the Republican side. It's a problem on the Democratic side because haven't we seen this already? I mean, like Barack Obama was the last surprise, and that was, he announced, I think, in 2006, and then he ended up running in 2008, and he has this long primary beats Hillary Clinton. But that's the last time that you had a real surprise. In 2004, it was pretty clear it was going to be John Kerry. In the year 2000, you already had Al Gore, who was in office. In 2016, you can argue as to whether Hillary Clinton was anointed, but at the end of the day, there's way too many instances on the Republican and the Democratic side over the last 30 years in American politics where the press sort of decides in advance who the person is going to be. Why don't you just leave it up to the people? Right? Leave it up to the people. Now, of the people we've got right now, they've got Pritzker, right? Pritzker is the Democratic governor, and he's in Illinois, and he's made these great and powerful speeches. Okay, that's great. That's great, but he's still the governor of Illinois. There are still other things he has to say, even if he just says, hey, do nothing, Democrats need to be moved around. That's the same thing David Hogg is saying. David Hogg, who was talking about primarying safe Democrats in order to get a more progressive party. Something I actually think is a pretty good idea, and something that Republicans did for years with the Tea Party. They got rid of people who they didn't think were aligned with their more sort of aggressive agenda positions. That seems like a reasonable thing to do. Then you've got Andy Beshear in Kentucky. I'm going to be honest with you. Andy Beshear was a potential vice presidential pick for Vice President Kamala Harris, and lots of people thought that might work because he's from the South. He's kind of boring. And I'm not being glib when I say that. The guy's not interesting. It factor actually matters. Somebody who is compelling, exciting, and people say, oh my gosh, I really want to vote for him. Andy Beshear has done a good job with healthcare in Kentucky, and that's great and wonderful. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is the kind of man who's going to light the world on fire. Then you start getting to your more prominent names. You got Gavin Newsome. You have Wes Moore. Gavin Newsome, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Gavin Newsome's running for president anymore. That man has taken more rightward turns in a car with a broken axle. Okay, he's got a podcast where he brings on Charlie Kirk, and the first thing he's talking about is how his kids listen to Charlie Kirk. Why are your children listening to Charlie Kirk? Then he's just putting on new announcements where he's talking with the White House about how to save Hollywood, but he's doing these sort of rah-rah cheerleading things. And so Gavin Newsom, who was also not super popular in California, I don't see Gavin Newsom really making a presidential run. He has moved to the center too quickly. And I don't think people necessarily needed to move to the center to win presidential nominations anyway, but he's done it in this obnoxious, ridiculous, over-the-top way that I don't think anyone is going to be happy with. Not to mention the fact that I think his personal life will be a huge detriment to his ability to be successful. Let me move this over a little bit, because we appear to be getting some glaring sun right now. Okay, thank you. So then we get to our last guy, who's probably the most popular person people want to talk about. And remember, I'm not just breaking down why these people are bad, right? Why your faith can't win. What I'm talking about is that each of these people has something going on, and they're the names being promoted as potential Democratic nominees in 2028, and they have a lot of other things they have to handle beforehand. Then you got Wes Moore. Wes Moore, who is the charismatic, attractive, very successful, popular governor of Maryland right now. He has said not once, but twice, I ain't running in 2028. Now, let me tell you a little secret about political candidates, right? They almost never say that. They never say I'm not running. Their usual answer is, my concern is my state right now. My concern is the next election. My concern is in helping the Democratic Party. Wes Moore has said, I'm not running for president in 2028. Do I believe him? Absolutely not. No one should believe him. I'm sure he's going to run. And you know why he's probably going to run? He is currently heading down to South Carolina, right, in order to be at the big annual Blue Dog Dinner or something else like that, which is where everybody who wants to run for president, because you want to get in there early for the South Carolina primary. But to be perfectly honest with you, if the Democrats were smart in 2028, their primary system would be different anyway. We need to stop the whole Iowa, South Carolina thing anyway. But again, I think he's running, but he's saying he's not, and he's got to be reelected in 2026, and that's his primary concern. So asking these people and promoting these people, I don't care that George Clooney says, I think he's a great leader and I like Andy Beshear. At the end of the day, let this man live. Let this man breathe. Now, I'll say this really quick about the Republicans. I don't think they're going to have a primary, because I think the president's going to run again. And that's a conversation that I'll get into in a more extensive way, but I do not think there's going to be a Republican primary in 2028. And so Brian Kemp right now, who is the governor of Georgia, who cheated to beat Stacey Abrams first in 2018 and then legitimately beat her in 2022, if you can count elections in Georgia as being legitimate. He just announced that he's not going to run for the Senate. He was going to run against Democrat John Ossoff. Everybody in Georgia was afraid, and Democrats in general were afraid that John Ossoff was going to get beat, and that Brian Kemp was going to be the one to beat him because he is popular in the state of Georgia. He said he's not running for Senate, and everybody who I know on the inside says it's because he wants to run for president. I don't know why he says he's going to run for president, because the current president is going to run again. And maybe Brian Kemp wants to be the next John Kasich, the guy who runs out there as like the resistance person, but we already know this is going to be, how this is going to happen. So again, all these people sound great and wonderful, but none of them, and I'm a Maryland resident, right? I like Wes Moore. I don't think any of them right now are in a position where talking about the presidency makes sense, and he's the only one who's been smart enough to say that. Everybody else, Kamala Harris should never run again for a million reasons. I'm sorry. She ran a perfectly competent campaign, but they raised $1 billion in almost 100 days, $1 billion, and have nothing to show for it. That is not a good sign. She wasn't able to extricate herself away from Joe Biden in the way that she probably should have. Kamala Harris should never run again. Tim Walz has already said he didn't want to do it. Kelly, who was one of the VP picks, let's just move on. Let's move on. And by moving on, I mean we should be paying attention to what's happening in this country right now, what's happening in this country when it comes to the economy, and what's happening in this country in terms of politics, rather than worrying about something that's going to have 50 million years down the road. Because we have no idea what condition our country is going to be in or what our expectations will be by then. So anyway, this is one thing I wanted to say really, really quick. So I had a chance to see Thunderbolts over the weekend, which was the big new Marvel movie. And you guys, I know, hey, phenomenally bird. I love my comic stuff. I love Thunderbolts. I thought it was an entertaining film. This is something I want to talk because I say this to you guys all the time when I talk about media. This is the third thing, right? This is our media thing. It's really interesting to see the coverage. And we saw this with Sinners, right? All the varieties and the deadlines and the rap were like, Thunderbolts is great. It's a hit. It's back. Thunderbolts made about $74 million in its opening weekend. Captain America Brave New World with Anthony Mackie, that everybody said was a bad film because there's a black Captain America, it made $88 million over the same weekend. So why is there so much praise for Thunderbolts when it actually made less money than Captain America Brave New World? And if the conversation in the press for years has been, well, there's Marvel fatigue and people are tired of Marvel, why is the movie that's making less money being considered the breakthrough that's changing Marvel fatigue? But nobody wanted to say that about the black-led film that happened just 3 months ago. Look at all the coverage out there. It's amazing to me to see this sort of thing because there has not been one Marvel movie to come out in the last 4 years that wasn't compared to its previous film. And I promise you, if Thunderbolts had come out and made $88 million in its opening weekend, and Captain America Brave New World came out and made $74, it'd be like, oh my gosh, Anthony Mackie is terrible. His career should be over. And for those of you who are wondering, they're like, well, wait a minute, Anthony Mackie's movie came out during a holiday weekend and we have President's Day. Yes, even if you count just the Friday through Sunday, Captain America, the black superhero movie, made more than Thunderbolts. Look, I like them both, but I detest crappy press coverage. Anyway, those are my three things for today. Make sure that you like, share, save, connect this with other people. I'm having a great time with you all. I'm loving the feedback and the comments. If you're on YouTube or you're on Instagram one way or another. And also, I have a big surprise. I cannot announce it with where I am now, but I'll be talking about it soon, probably in my next post. Later.